We acknowledge the first Australians as the traditional custodians of the continent, whose culture is the oldest living culture in human history. We pay our respects to elders, past, present and emerging, and we respect their cultural heritage, beliefs and relationship with the land. We extend our respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today. They share the memories, traditions and hopes of the traditional ancestors with the new generations today and in the future. We would also like to thank them for looking after this land for thousands of years.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our next session in SciFest Minibeast Magnified. So you might, for those of you that have been joining us for some of the other sessions, you probably recognise me. My name is Karen, but I'm also from an organisation called Australian Environmental Education. And so today I'm going to be talking to you about Minibeasts. So what we're going to start with is just a little bit of yelling at the screen. Now, this is a webinar, so I won't be able to hear you, but I'll be able to tell what you think they are. But you can also put your responses in the chat. So one of the key ways that we can understand about invertebrates and mini-beasts is their number of legs. So that's going to be our first activity, looking at some pictures, calling out or putting it in the chat whether they've got legs. The answer of 0 is still a good one. And what they are, what species or what type they are, because a lot of these mini beasts you recognize from their shape. And there are so many of very similar shapes. So you might recognize behind me, we've got a spider, 8 legs. We've got a stick insect on this side that has got 6 legs. There's a few other things that we're going to be looking at as well. Let's see this one here. Let's get that focused. That's better. If I turn this one over, you can see lots and lots of legs under there. So sometimes it really does help knowing the number of legs of some of these different animals to help us identify them. We'll go through that. Then we'll have a little bit of a look about life cycles and then some of the clues that we have these different animals around, because sometimes you don't always see things. Sometimes it could be a cocoon, munch marks in leaves, an egg sac, even as simple as something like spider web that gives you a clue that these animals are around. So we'll get started and I'll show you some of my other live invertebrates and insects here as we go forward as well. But the first thing that we need to think about is how we classify these different animals. So the ones that we are looking at are called invertebrates. So if everyone can put your hand behind your back, feel your spine. So the bone that runs through your back is your spine or your backbone. And it's really important because not all animals have these. And if you're really careful and thinking about it, you'll feel those bumps in there as well. Your individual bones in your spine are called vertebrae. And all animals that have these internal skeletons are called vertebrate animals. So mammals like us, birds covered in feathers, fish, amphibians, which are your frogs, and reptiles. These 5 groups of animals have internal skeletons are called vertebrate animals. All of the other animals on Earth are invertebrates. So when we think about the variety or biodiversity of our animal life, we really need to focus on these invertebrates because they make up so many of the animals from both the land and in the ocean. And many of these invertebrates are marine animals. The largest of the invertebrates being giant squids and colossal squids. They are huge. They have the biggest eyeball out of any animal in the world. These giant squids and colossal squids, the size of a soccer ball, just their eyeball. So some of these animals get very big, but most of them are very small, mini beasts, which just means small animals. So we're going to have a look at our slideshow. And remember, I'm going to show some animals. I'm going to get you to either put it in the chat or you can yell at your screen. If you're loud enough, I might even still be able to hear you. And how many legs they have. because it's one of the ways that we can identify these different groups. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, so our first one, what animal is this? Pop it in the chat, yell it out. And how many legs does it have? Oh, excellent. Lots of worms, specifically earthworm, and it's got no legs. And that is 100% correct. So worms are really important invertebrates. So often we don't consider them too much, but I sometimes call worms poo tubes because really what they're doing is moving through the soil, eating the soil and pooing out the other end. But what they are doing is breaking down a lot of the leaf litter and the material in the soil and making it more available for our plants to get those nutrients. But what they're also doing is what we call aerating the soil. So they are moving around and creating holes and spaces that allows air through to the soil. If they weren't doing this, the soil would get so compacted that the plants wouldn't be able to grow. What else? When it rains, the water can infiltrate through those holes as well, picks up the worm poo and other dissolved materials and helps that get to the plant roots to help them stay nice and healthy. Helps with those nutrients to get to the plant. So they're really, really important. So well done, everyone. Now, what's our next one? Oh, we've got a yuck. Yeah, some people do think these are yucky. Oh, we've got some specific names as well. So we've got slugs with no legs, and specifically we've got people calling it a leopard slug because of those spots. It does get its name. So slugs are in a group called mollusks. So the most common ones that you would know are things, octopus, slugs, snails are all in this group. They are one of the largest groups of animals after our arthropods. So these mollusks, there are so many of them. On land, it's our snails and slugs, but in the ocean, there is a huge variety of these marine mollusks and things like octopus, cuttlefish, and squids. So some of my favorite marine animals to scuba dive with are the cuttlefish and the octopus. So they're really big variety in the ocean, and certainly a lot brighter colors in the ocean as well. So well done there. Yes, we've got people in the Q&A answering that as well. And Millie's mentioned that they've got a foot but no legs. It is interesting because we do call the thing that the snails and the slugs slide on a foot. But technically it's not really a foot because it's not attached to anything. But I do like that as a little bit of a trick there. Okay, what's our next one? I've mentioned it already. Yep, lots of people already coming through that it's a snail. And the difference there is that the snails carry a shell. Now, in the ocean, our sea slugs are some of the most beautiful animals in the ocean called nudibranchs, and they can be beautiful, bright colors. But on land, as I mentioned, they're often not very bright at all. And the same thing goes with the snails. On land, we tend to have just that single snout, which is called a gastropod. And in the ocean, we get gastropods, but we also get bivalves, which means two shells. So again, no legs here. Oh, too fast. Okay, what's this one? So you can give it a specific name, the group that it's in, and how many legs. So we've got already people coming through that it's a mantid or a mantis. Absolutely. A couple of people suggesting a grasshopper as well. Very, very common mix-up, but it is a praying mantis. We can tend to identify it with that triangle-shaped head and those very long legs for catching its prey. And yes, it is an insect, so well done. It does have 6 legs. So a couple of people, it's hard to see in this picture. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 3 on each side, and it is an insect, so it does have antennae as well. Excellent. What's our next one? Oh, so quick with some of the guesses here. So this one is a beetle. It's got that classic beetle shape. And it's got really quite long antennas here as well, that it can be a bit tricky, but it does have 6 legs because it is an insect. Now, beetles are a hugely common type of insect. So there are lots of species. They actually estimate that there could be more species of beetles in the world than there are different species of plants, which is incredible to think about. So beetles are the largest group of arthropods, or I should say insects are the largest group of arthropods, which just means jointed legs. So if you bend your fingers and bend your elbows and at your shoulders, our skeletons have joints. And that joint means arthro. So if anyone's ever heard of someone having arthritis, it's swelling in the joints. So these animals are called arthropods because they've got jointed legs. Pod, in this case, means legs. So arthropods are your insects, spiders, millipedes, centipedes, and crustaceans. And the largest group of that is our insects. And the largest group of insects are beetles. And the largest group of beetles are a group called weevils. So if you ever see any animal in the world and you don't know what it is, if you say beetle, you've got a really good percentage of chance to be right. Now, admittedly, if it's an elephant, you might not want to guess beetle, but if you don't know what it is and it's a smaller invertebrate, just say beetle and you've got a very good chance of being correct. Okay, what is this one? Looks a little bit similar. Ooh, very specific with some of these as well. A stink bug, we've had a suggestion. Ooh, an aphid, a stinky buggy, an assassin bug. Ooh, and then some I don't know. So it is, once again, an insect. So we have our 6 legs, long antennae, and these ones are actually a type of stink bug or a shield bug. Now, I'm going to give you some tricks. There's a couple of different ways you can tell the difference between a bug like this and a beetle. Now, bugs are a particular group of insects. So even though often we call everything bugs, that's not necessarily true. They're only one particular group. So we're going to look at 2 ways: where they live and what they eat. So if everyone can just put your hands out like you're about to eat a big hamburger and just turn your hands into your cheeks, and I want to do some munchy mouth parts like this. You can make as much noise as you like. But our beetles eat that way. They have sideways crunching mouth parts. You can see it at the top here with our beetle, with their mandibles, what we call their mouth parts, really good for chewing. They're in the leaf litter, they're breaking down leaves, they're crunching on bark and plant material. They are quite amazing. But our bugs here, underneath their body is a long tube-like straw. So if you put your arm out, pretend you've got a pointy fingers there and make a big sucking noise like a straw for me. Ready? What they're doing is they are putting that long mouth part into a plant and they are sucking the sap. Now, an assassin bug is actually doing that to things that it's hunting, but they use that as sap suckers. So later on, after we finish the session, try to say sap suckers 10 times really, really, really fast and see how you go. So they've got 2 different ways of eating, but also 2 different places where they live. Generally, bugs are found up in the plants, up in the trees and the bushes, and it's sticky because they're around that sap. Or things like assassin bugs, they're actually hunting things. Whereas the beetles tend to be more in the ground and the leaf litter, under bark and those kinds of things. So different places they live and different ways that they feed. Okay, what's our next one? I expect you to be so quick. Ready? What is it and how many legs? Oh, so quick, everyone. Very impressed. So it is a spider. Now, in this case, it is specifically a wolf spider. And all spiders have 8 legs. Most spiders actually also have 8 eyes, which is quite amazing. And most of them actually have 8 kinds of silk as well. So really incredible animals. And I know lots of people are a bit worried about spiders. Spiders, if you leave them alone, will leave you alone as well. Not all spiders actually build webs either. So all spiders can make silk, and they use it to wrap their food up in their egg sacs, line burrows and tunnels. Some spiders that we'll see right at the end make little nets to catch their food, but not all spiders will make those big orb weaving webs. So depending on where they live and what they're doing will depend on the way they use silk. Okay, let's see what's next. What is this animal? A lot more legs, isn't it? Have you noticed that we're getting more and more legs as we go up? But lots of you can recognize this one as well, and it is a centipede. So the centipedes here have 1 pair of legs per segment. And if we look at the front here, they actually have antennae, and they've got their first pair of legs modified into fangs. So centipedes can actually give a painful bite. At the end of the body here, we've got those 2 long kind of fake antennae. So again, one of those animals that's trying to look like the head and the tail are the same. If an animal gets injured on the tail, they can usually survive. If they get injured on the head, that probably is the end. So for a little bit of trivia there, centipedes have at least 13 segments, which means they've got at least 26 legs. The bigger the centipede, the more legs that they have. So 1 pair of legs per segment. Now, for the next one, you don't have to guess the number of legs exactly, but maybe how many legs per segment. Okay, let's see. We've got the animal correct straight away. And it is a millipede. We've got lots of guesses on the legs there. Now, millipedes, and someone has got it right, per segment has 4 legs per segment. So 2 pairs of legs per segment. And there's many segments as they have times by 4. The minimum number of segments for a millipede is 11. So the minimum number of legs they can have is is 44. I'm just going to stop sharing for a moment and see if I can pick my millipede up. Here we go. Just want to show you how big it actually is. So this one, I have counted the legs one day. I actually counted the segments on the body, and it has about 50 segments at the moment. And yes, it is real. So 50 segments at the moment, which means times by 4, it's got almost 200 legs. Now, I haven't counted every individual leg because it moves around quite a lot, but as it grows and it gets older, it will end up with more and more segments. Now, while I'm here, I will show you a couple of other things that I've got on the table as well. So I'm just going to zoom into those. So these are both real. I'm going to get the focus sorted out because it doesn't like it today. There we go. That's a bit better. But we've got 2 animals here. Let's see if I can zoom in a bit more and move them. So here we've got a burrowing cockroach. And what they're trying to do is burrow all the time. So there he is. I'm going to move some of my leaf litter out of the way so we can see this one. So this is an animal that's probably about 5 centimeters in size at the moment. They've got really strong spiky legs. So I'm going to be really careful when I flip him over. You can see those amazing legs. That's how they dig and burrow. So I'm going to turn him back over because he doesn't like that too much. And they've got this real, if I turn it forward, this real shovel-like mark on their front that helps them burrow into the soil and the sediment. And you can see all it's trying to do is hide back under the leaf litter up in the corner. So it's just hiding right under there. They are very, very active. These ones can live for almost 10 years. This one's probably about 3 years old at the moment. And they will get double in size. And they are extraordinarily good burrowers. Now, in Australia, we have over 100 different species of cockroach. The cockroaches that we find inside our home are not native. The same way with some of the millipedes that we find, there's an introduced species of millipede that we often will see. Now, let's see if I can turn this guy over. Its head here, you can see those little antennae. If it's feeling threatened, it doesn't have fangs like the centipede, but what they can do is ooze a liquid out of their body that doesn't taste very nice. Or we can see those legs moving now. So those legs will move them around. I'm zooming in, and they kind of move in a little sort of wave pattern. So they ooze this thing out of their body to stop animals wanting to eat it. It stains and it smells. Now, it's not really toxic for us. I wouldn't want to eat a big millipede, but certainly for a bird or a frog, they would spit that back out again. So let's see if I can turn this one over. You can see those amazing number of legs. And they're very, very good at turning themselves back across. So it's almost turned right back around. And those legs correct itself. They can almost hang upside down. If I was holding it in my hand, I might demonstrate that a little bit later. But we can see those little antennae trying to find where it's going, putting their legs right and investigating. And both of these animals are eating leaves. This kind of material breaking down that leaf litter into nutrients in the soil. And those things that are broken down then would be broken down further by the worms. So really important part of our life cycle. I've got someone going, ooh, does the millipede glow in the dark? It does not. There are certainly some scorpions that fluoresce in certain light, but the millipede doesn't. It's definitely something to go out and explore with a UV light to see some of the things. I know there's some mushrooms that glow. I go scuba diving, so often I see things called bioluminescence as well, which is quite amazing. Now, you might notice I've got a little bit of a plant here. I'm just going to zoom into this one. Oh, that's the wrong button. Let's hope we'll get our focus. That's a little bit better. I'm going to zoom out just a tiny bit. I wonder if you can see any animals in here. I know how many there are. Oh, we've got a stick insect. I can see it. Oh, the leaf bug, yes. Now, I wonder, though, if you can see 3. So let me know when you can see 3 different ones. Oh, Millie can only see 2. Or a few people can see them all. I'm going to get them to move, and that will help a little bit. Or a few people do see, oh, what plant is this? This is not as healthy as I would like, lily pilly. So this is a pot plant that I've got. Now, there's one here. There's one here. And there's one here. So these are 3 different types of stick insects. These are all Australian. They are essentially my pets. They camouflage to look really different. This one's hiding from me now. So they have little hooks on their hands. Let's see if we can get it nice and focused there. This one here is got one more shed of its skin before it becomes full size. So it will double in size. This one's called a spiny leaf insect because it looks more like a leaf than a stick. Often curls its tail up to look a little bit like a scorpion as well. And someone was asking, how do I feed them? I collect gum leaves and other types of leaves. Often if I'm walking and the cockatoos have been around, they will break off branches that drop down and I can collect nice fresh gum leaves. If not, I've got a lily-pilly hedge out the front, which I sometimes get leaves from. Acacia, so the wattles, they quite like as well. At the moment, I've got about 5 adults and maybe 15 really little ones. But these will lay eggs and then those eggs will hatch out as well. So I've got 3 different species at the moment, plus I've got that burrowing cockroach and the giant millipede. And I do have some baby praying mantis at the moment, so I'll see if I can get one of those out to show you. They are really super tiny. And they're really super fast. Going to crawl on my hand now. You can just see, I don't know how much it's going to focus. You can just see it on my hand. It's so small that it's actually, there we go. It's almost impossible to see because it's so thin that it's not focusing on it. So you can see this one's probably about 2 centimeters in size. The teeniest, tiniest thing. I'm going to put it right up to the camera to see if it's going to pick it up. Oh, no, too small. So this one here, when it first hatched out, it would have been the size of your pinky fingernail. Super tiny. This is probably a few weeks. I think I've had it for about 3 or 4 weeks. So it is still really, really super small, but very, very hard to capture in terms of photos and on video. And if I have a look in this one here, I've got an even smaller one. That's just you can see it right there. So sometimes they are super hard to find. I don't want to put them together because the little one will probably get eaten by the slightly bigger one. So they're separated at the moment till they get a little bit bigger. So these are things that I find in my garden, and I take them out to schools and those kinds of things as well. They are very, very, very cute. I do like the praying mantis. Okay, we are going to go back to our screen and have a look at some of these other clues. Well, we're going to look at life cycles first. So, I have to say, I've got another animal that we haven't looked at yet. So there's one more group of arthropods that we didn't mention. We talked about insects, we talked about spiders, centipedes and millipedes are in a group called myriapod, which just means many legs. But we've also got this group here. So has anyone seen one of these before? It's not usually this big. Does anyone know what we call it? Or someone's seen one? Oh, yes. We've got a dung beetle. It's not a dung beetle. Oh, yes, someone's got it. It is a slater, sometimes called a roly-poly. Excellent. And these are actually in a group called crustaceans. So most of the time we think of crustaceans, we think of animals in the ocean. But this animal is far more closely related to a lobster than it is to, say, a beetle or a millipede. These are in a group called decapods. So you might have heard that dec before. December used to be the 10th month, not anymore. And so it means 10. So it means 10 legs. So decapod, 10 legs. Pod means leg. So these are one of those jointed-legged animals called arthropods, and they've got 10 or more legs. These are the ones, the little grey ones that you'll find under bricks or rocks that will curl up in a little ball, hence their nickname roly-polies. So they are quite amazing animals there, but most of the crustaceans are in the ocean. So if we think about these mini beasts that we find on land, they're often not bright in colours other than the insects. They tend to, a lot of them hide in the leaf litter and under the ground. So we tend not to see them as much. And our ones in our ocean tends to be really bright in colour. Okay. We also need to think of other habitats as well. So what we've got here is a freshwater sample. So these are not things that live in the ocean. These are things that live in fresh water. And if we look right up into the corner, there's a little animal there. We've got this big one here, and there's actually the bottom of one there. And these are animals that spend part of their life cycle in the water and the other part of their life cycle on land. So other than these invertebrates, who can think of another animal that does that same thing? We've got Ari already mentioning that dragonflies, absolutely, these are dragonfly nymphs. And yet we've got, and a baby dragonfly, yes, good, well spotted. And mentioning frogs, absolutely. So frogs are another animal. These are vertebrate animals, though, that do spend the first part of their life in water as tadpoles and the adult part of their life on land. And someone else has also mentioned mosquitoes. Excellent. So mosquitoes do the same thing. They spend the first larval stage of their life in water, and then as adults, they're flying around. So it's important to think about different habitats and what different animals need. So if we skip on, this is that dragonfly larvae there, and this is an adult dragonfly. So this is one from my backyard, and I was in the right place at the right time because it was just as it was drying its wings. This is a time when they are considered quite vulnerable to predators because they can't fly yet. They've come out of the water. They need to emerge and shed their skin, dry their wings before they can fly away. So I was at the right place in the right time and got this amazing photo of probably one of the prettiest dragonflies with that yellow and blue color that I've ever seen. This one here is a damselfly. Now, this is from my backyard as well. And this year I've had more damselflies than I've ever had before. They tend to have slightly beadier eyes, but the key is how they rest. They're often a little bit smaller as well. Damselflies, when they're resting, will rest with their wings folded back along their body. But if we look at our dragonfly, they rest with their wings open. Oh, and we've got Adeline, absolutely, these eat mosquitoes. So when they're flying around, they're actually using those legs and their mouth parts at the front to find food and push food, little flying insects into their mouth. So dragonflies are absolutely fabulous to have around because they will eat a lot of those pest insects as well. But we can tell the difference, but dragonflies rest with their wings out and damselflies rest with their wings flat along their body. Okay, other animals like this, diving beetles, spend their entire life cycle in the water. They don't have a land stage, but their whole life cycle will be in the water there. Now, there's two different life cycles. One is the classic one we know of, like our butterflies. So an egg gets laid, a caterpillar, it eats as much as it can until it gets as big as it can, and then it goes into the cocoon or the chrysalis, and it goes through a change, which I'll show you in a moment. The other type is ones that shed their skin. I mentioned that my fabulous stick insect here has one more shed of its skin before it's a full adult female. So she has been growing from a tiny egg, about less than half a centimetre in size. And when it first hatched out, again, needs to eat, shed its skin, grow, shed its skins, grow. And they do that 7 times. So she's only done 6. She's got one more shed. And as I said, it will double in size. So it will end up being quite a lot bigger. So this is an example of that first life cycle. So has anyone seen anything like this in the bush or the park or their backyard before? We've got someone else has taken a photo of a dragonfly before. Is it a pupa? No, I haven't seen one. It's okay if you haven't seen one. It took me a long time to know what these were and what to look for. Totally have some of these specimens in my collection. Oh, well done, Millie. So this one here is a praying mantis egg sac. So they lay this foamy egg sac, and inside is multiple eggs. So it's not just one egg sac for one animal. There's multiple eggs inside. And when they hatch out, they are tiny. If everyone looks at their pinky fingernail, this one here is smaller than that. It was almost see-through. It had just hatched out, but look at it. It is a miniature praying mantis. It looks exactly like the adults do, but it was only a few millimeters in size. And it sheds its skin to grow, sheds its skin to grow. Here is a full-size adult. Now, she, I think, is a female, and I think she's either eaten a big lunch or she's actually just about to lay an egg sac, because that abdomen is very, very full. Okay, so if we look at our other life cycle, this was outside my front door, and this caterpillar is munching away. It is eating these leaves. This is not a native type of plant, but they were having a lovely time, and it was just by luck that I saw the caterpillar at this plant. And then I noticed that there were two, so slightly different stages. And then the next photo was the cocoon. And this chrysalis was hanging underneath one of the leaves, and it was silver. So it had these orange marks in it, but it was reflective. So it almost looked like a mirror. And that was how I was able to identify it. I went on, I think I might have asked Google, mirror reflective silver chrysalis. And it came back to a really amazing website that's all about butterflies and caterpillars. And it showed me a picture of the caterpillar. So I was able to then identify it from the caterpillar and the chrysalis together. And I watched every day for a few weeks. And then we got to this stage. How different does it look? The chrysalis has changed shape, but we can then see some features there. So we can see the dots on the wing. So this was really ready. I think we can even see the head here was ready to emerge. So I was at the right place at the right time looking, and was able to then see it emerge. So see the dots there on the wings? They were tucked and curved up under here. There's the cocoon, the chrysalis left over there. Once it's emerged, it was almost see-through again after the animal had come out. But again, it needed to dry its wings. So it was there for a little while, and I was able to get the photo of it drying its wings before it was able to fly away. So some other things you might keep an eye out for as well. This is a native bee called a blue banded bee. They are beautiful. This one is in a introduced species of plant called lantana, but it's getting the pollen out of there. There are lots of native types of bees. Sometimes the clue that they're around is listening and hearing the sounds, but sometimes you might not recognize them as bees. You've got other ones called hoverflies. There's teddy bear bees. There's so many different native animals that we need to look out for as well. I just wanted to show you this amazing one of the butterfly, another amazing pollinator. So most people think of bees when they think of pollinating our plants, but butterflies are really important as well, because they've got this very long mouth part as well called a proboscis, and it's curled up. But when they extend it, they can get pollen out of the amazing flowers. I'm just checking with your questions as well if I've missed anything. Oh, thank you. We've got Melba wants to be a photographer. Sometimes it is just being at the right place at the right time. And I'm only using my phone to take these photos. So I don't have a fancy camera at all. And some of these photos here are not mine. I have got permission from other people to use them. My friend took this beautiful blue banded bee one. But this one is one of mine. And this is another piece of evidence. So Put in the chat, what is this? Have you seen one before? Ah, yes, we've got a few people already commenting. It's a cicada, absolutely. So this is the cicada exoskeleton, sometimes just called a cicada shell. They're really significant because often the clues that we see lying around are these exoskeletons, the shed skin of these animals. I've got a little one here that's from one of my stick insects. I'll just unshare so you can see it a bit clearer because it's very little. So this is actually the shed skin of one of the spiny leaf insect actually. And they're actually really, really significant because sometimes you don't see the whole animal and you might just see a shed skin. What is the other sign? There is a cicada around. So it's not what it looks like. You might be lucky enough to see the adult cicada, but yeah, people are putting it in the chat already. It's the sound. So cicadas are the loudest of all of the insects. So it's really significant, that sound. For me, it's the sound of summer. I know the weather's warming up. It's getting hot. Summer's coming because I hear the cicadas. So really quite incredible. Now, someone's been asking as well, how do I attract all these insects? It's about creating the right habitat. So I've got some lily pillies planted as a hedge in my front garden. I have found things like case moths, which I think I'm about to show you, one of these. These are case moth cocoons from an animal that looks like this. The caterpillar comes out of that cocoon. They've got silk that they make, and then they chew sticks and add it to these case moths. They can get 10 centimeters long. I found them in the hedge. I found those praying mantis egg sacs in that hedge as well. So sometimes it's just having different types of plant material and also looking, going out and investigating, especially as the weather warms up. There'll be lots of amazing things that you'll be able to go out and see and hear out there as well. Sometimes it's as simple as this here. Look at that munch mark in the leaf from a caterpillar. This is actually in with my stick insects. So it could have been the stick insects eating that, or it could have been from the caterpillar. So looking for those kinds of evidence are really important as well. You never know what you might find. This is another great example. This is a web, but inside has a curled leaf. Pop in the chat if you've ever seen one of these. These are leaf curling spiders. The spider will actually munch on the leaf when it's green and use its silk to sew it. So it actually builds this leaf. I've seen this even made with a chocolate wrapper when a spider couldn't get the right leaf. So we've got some people have seen them, some people haven't, but you might notice them now that you know what to look for. And again, certain things are found in some parts of Australia and not others. Where you live might not be the habitat for the leaf curling spiders. This is what it looks like looking down one of the curls. That's its abdomen. It's about the size of your thumbnail. So they're actually a pretty small animal. And we can see one just poking his legs out the bottom there. This is the last one we'll look at. I just want to show you the net casting spider. So this one here creates this net. This is in my backyard as well. And I was just by chance, I saw this particular one. And so it spreads the net out with its legs and will wait for prey to move underneath, and it throws the net over the top. So when you're thinking about how to attract these kinds of animals, not using pesticides, you know, that idea that the dragonflies, if they're in your backyard, are eating the mosquitoes, the spiders are eating the flies, and they're keeping some of those pests down. So I find that even though I've got a pond and I've got lots of these other insects, I don't usually get more mosquitoes or flies than any other area. So having that balance between all of these mini beasts or small animals can create a really amazing backyard. So plants with flowers, you can make insect hotels that give them micro habitats to hide in. There's so many different ways that you can attract some of these amazing animals. But, you know, go out and have a look. You might have more in your backyard, school ground or local area than you realize. I will be sending some follow-up resources tomorrow with a copy of the recording as well. And that will give you some clues to go out and look and listen and observe to see and identify some of these local mini beasts that you might have. Oh my goodness, everyone. I'm so impressed with all of your responses that you came through. Oh, here we go. We've got someone saying if you mix garlic and soap, it makes a great bug safe pest spray. They are some fabulous ideas. This one's a little bit disgusting, but I've had some bronzed orange bugs get my citrus trees. So what I was advised is actually some of them you squash them up and then you spray that back on and it deters them. But the easiest way for some of the things is to pick them off. I've had caterpillar infestations and I've just removed 90% of them. So you don't want to get rid of all of the caterpillars because you don't want to get rid of all of your butterflies or moths. But if you remove a lot of them, it gets that balance back together. What does a caterpillar look like when it's in a cocoon? It is an incredible process. They kind of dissolve themselves and start again. So while they're in there, they've got special enzymes and proteins that kind of, dissolve them and then rebuild them into the new shape. It's quite incredible. I'm sure you could probably find some slow version YouTube clips of showing that process. Lots of people that have butterfly farms usually have lots of different stages and they've got some really great videos of that. Excellent, everyone. Once I send you the follow-up resources, if you've got further questions, please feel free to send them through to me. I'm very happy to follow up with you. Oh, here we go. Melba's just noticed that she's got some cocoons in her front yard. So that's fabulous. So sometimes it is a matter of just going out and looking and observing. So well done, everyone. Very impressed with all of your Minibeasts awareness already. And get out there and explore, especially as the weather warms up. And remember, the best way to do it is with observations. Looking and listening and observing. And that means you're not poking spiders or picking up centipedes or other animals that could sting or bite. Someone's got a question about what a butterfly farm is. There are some places in Australia that they will actually breed butterflies. So they breed them for zoos and wildlife parks and for other events. And so they have lots of caterpillars and lots of cocoons, and they're breeding them to have fresh adult butterflies out of there as well. What do stink bugs eat? They are sucking on sap. So most of the time they're eating the sap out of plants. Excellent, everyone. Where can you see an adult cicada? It is really tricky. Right place, right time. If you're seeing lots of the cicada shells, keep looking in that area and you might be able to see one freshly emerging. But I have to say, I look all the time and maybe only once a year I catch the right time because a lot of it's happening at night when you're not outside exploring. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you for some more sessions coming later into SciFest. This National Science Week project is supported by the Australian Government, Aspiring Australia, and proudly brought to you by Virtual Excursions Australia.